Welcome back to the channel. This is my 2001 Ram 3500, and today we're working on shocks, a wheel bearing, and some upper ball joints. On the driver's side, it looks like either I torqued them down too much or something else, but the bolts got stripped out, so we're gonna go ahead and replace them. This is my truck right here. If you saw last video, you saw that diagnosed that wheel bearing is going out. The shocks in general have been kind of bad. If you do the shake test on the truck, it's supposed to bounce once, and mine moves around. And then the roads out here are pretty atrocious out in the Midwest now, and the winters beat them up. So driving up and around, you hit certain bumps and you can feel the wheel kind of like skip before it actually settles back down again, generally due to the shock absorber not able to plant the wheel back down and letting it move around too much. So that's why we're replacing everything, and we're gonna go and get this truck ready to go. In other news, the tires did show up finally. You didn't see them last video, but these right here are what we're going with. These are the Crosswind mud terrain. I realize these are gonna be terrible winter tires, so I'm keeping the stock ones for the winter time. However, these are gonna look badass, and I don't do that heavy towing, so I think it's gonna be just fine. But they're a 33 1250, and you can kind of see it's a thinner tire. Ideally, I do like a little more meat, but being a two-wheel drive and you can't lift it up that much without doing a body lift, I think these will work out just fine. They're gonna look sick. Got a shop lined up to mill these things down. I'm taking them up tomorrow. Today's Sunday. It's gonna be Monday. Happy Father's Day, by the way, if you're a father watching this. So still haven't got them cleaned up yet, but doesn't really matter. Once we can do that once they're on the truck. I'm not super worried about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get working on this thing. I'm gonna start with the rear shocks, and then probably do that wheel bearing and shock absorber on this side. I'll do the shock absorber when I mess with the bumper control arm on that side. So that's the plan for the video. Let's go ahead and knock it out. The rear shock should be pretty easy. The back of the taller one is the rear. It's just 2 bolts. So unbolt it, bolt the new one in. I gotta figure out what the torque spec is, and then we'll be good to go. Welcome underneath the truck. So we got one shock right here, and the other one's on the front side over there for the rear axle. There are 2 of them, obviously. And these bolts are a 21 millimeter, or if you're a peasant like me and have Harbor Freight tools, they don't have a 21 that comes in the standard pack, so a 13/16 will fit just fine. These are gonna get torqued down to 100 foot-pounds for both bottom and top bolts. Gonna be the same thing for the front. So let's go start the time lapse and get into this replacement for these 2 shock absorbers. So now that first bottom bolt, when it came out, I kid you not, it was probably like finger tight. It wasn't gonna fall off, but yeah, that's kind of why torque specs matter. If you replace these things, make sure you torque them down a little bit. Too tight is generally better than too loose. However, over tightening is worse than both. So just to keep that in mind, that's kind of why torque specs matter. Give you a ballpark of where it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead. These things also have an insane amount of travel, like holy crap. So my guess is the 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive share the same shock absorber, just based on how freaking long this thing is. So the stock 4-wheel drives have a 5-inch block back here. I only have a 2-inch block because I'm 2-wheel drive once again, so that's what I have. But this also isn't stock. This is an aftermarket block. Stock came completely slammed down to the axle, so just heads up. But let's go ahead and get the replacement on here. Well, got them torqued down to 100 foot-pounds. That was a very easy and simple job. Just trying to break these guys off real quick. There we go. Alrighty, there we have it. So, new shocks in the rear on. Let's go ahead and get working on the fun part, which is going to be the front. here we have our whole dealio. Looks like our speed sensor is totally gone. I don't know how much useful that actually is, but I know it's used for anti-lock braking. I haven't got a brake light, so who knows if that even works or not. Whatever. Main reason here is because this has got some play in it, so you can't see it, but I can feel it. How much? Not bad, but it's enough that I think it warrants replacement. The bolts that hold the extra spacer on for the dually setup were looser than I thought they were, which is great for me because it wound up working out with the adjustable wrench. So now that's off, go ahead and pop this big bolt off. Well, that's unfortunate. Biggest size I have is 38 millimeter, and that is too small, so we got to go out and find the right size for that whole axle nut. All right, just got back from the store, picked up what I needed. So looks like it is a 1 5/8". Might be able to go down one size. The millimeter is 40. I mic'd it out on the caliper I have, and it was 40.03 or something like that. So, but this will fit. Does what we need. It is a 3/4 inch size. So I have an adapter to go down to 1/2 inch, so I can use my normal 1/2 inch. It's crazy because 1/2 inch looks tiny compared to this socket, but this is it. So let's go ahead and try and get this thing off. You gotta be freaking kidding me. That thing took, I kid you not, almost no effort. I was expecting to like have to borderline break this breaker bar to get it off, and came off with very minimal effort, which is kind of concerning. This thing I believe is supposed to be torqued down to like 200 and something foot-pounds, which I'm not really surprised about. The pinion bearing, or pinion bolt, which is similar to this, gets torqued down to like 400 foot-pounds. So it's a little heavy, but we'll make sure she's torqued down, you know, at least 150 probably, maybe 200. Just keep it good. Well, at least it's greasy. Hopefully that'll be fun. Let's go grab the sledgehammer, see if we can knock it off. So I just want to show you guys, this is how I know that this thing is bad, because the nut right here holds this whole thing on, just goes around where it's shiny here. However, you can see how much movement is in that wheel bearing. Thing's shot. So I wasn't able to move it as much with it on, but now that it's slid just a little bit, you can tell how much space is in that bearing, and that's the issue it's causing. Went ahead and just cleaned it up a little bit, washed it off with the power washer, and then painted what I could black. So now it looks a little better in here. We're gonna go ahead and pop our wheel bearing back on. All right, so now we got that down. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this side by doing our shock absorber, and then we'll be good to put the wheel and tire back on and be done over here. Shock's on. I'm gonna go ahead and meet you guys once the wheel's back on, and we have the other side basically in the same position as this one, so wheel off, and we'll start working on that side. I didn't show you last video and really explain, I feel like, super well, is the problem I ran into on this side. I'm still getting a creaky poppy noise on this side of the truck, and I did replace these upper control arm bushings, and when I put it back together, I didn't press in one side far enough, and noise came back. Took it off, pressed it in further, and noise went away. Now it's back again. So I'm going to take this side off, and after looking at how far I pushed in the other side's bushings, I'm going to double check both of these and make sure they're actually fully seated all the way. I may have screwed them up trying to seat them this much and bouncing around. It may not just sit tight anymore, but whatever. What I did notice though, when I was starting this process, was trying to take these guys off, So this back one comes off no problem. But where I have a problem is these two. So this front one in particular is stripped in there pretty good. So I got new hardware, and what I'm gonna do is take the grinder, basically. I might have to grind off this guy. This one I was able to get off, but this one I think I'm gonna actually have to grind off to get it out. Once we get it out, pop off this ball joint, take off this upper arm, make sure everything's pressed in properly, change out our shock like we wanted to, and kind of carry on from there. So I'm gonna do that off camera. There's no point really in filming all that. It's not really like maintenance or anything. So we'll go ahead and come back once everything's back together and cleaned up, and then put everything back together, go for a test drive, and see how it feels. Now, what I said, I'm not actually done with this. I wanted to show you guys a couple of things real quick. So first up, took off my upper control arm, and again, I'm gonna press these in just a little bit more. I think they're probably fine, but never be too safe. Now this is a little more concerning. This is the one that was stripped out on me, and it looks like this has probably been broken at some point, and someone tried to weld it in here to fix it. It probably rusted out or something. So might have been sliding around in here, in all honesty. Why? I mean, look how nasty it is. So what I did, because I don't have new control arms at the moment, I went ahead and picked up some washers and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and run a fat washer around here, and each of these can get a washer to stop eating away at the metal like it is. And I'm gonna repaint it, scrub it down, and make sure it's not rusting at all. I don't think it's rusting anymore, but I mean, that's pretty nasty, like holy cow. So I don't know how I missed this the first time I did this job in terms of doing these joints. I'd like never noticed that before. But yeah, it's not supposed to be there. So just thought that's interesting. Now, because we have everything off, I just washed it down. This is actually a really excellent opportunity to show you guys what we're working with here. So this is how the shock is mounted in. These are not factory. I forgot to mention that. This is for my lift kit. I have an 1.5 inch block in here, which gives me 3 inches of lift. And this is in order to run factory shocks. I have this spacer in here pretty much for the shock absorber. Doesn't move around, nice and solid, and it works out great. And the reason I did that is because when I want to find replacement shocks, I don't have to look up a specialty shock and try and find it. I tried finding it the first time. It's a real pain in the butt. This way I can just run factory shocks and it rides just fine. So that's pretty much how it mounts in. So if you're curious, I mean, that's how it works. Pretty interesting. So, and the control arm bolts up here. Camber is adjusted with that and everything. I did just paint this because I'm going to move this out a little bit. I don't know if you guys watched the last video, but my tire is wearing a little unevenly because it didn't adjust the camber right. So I'm going to adjust the camber and then just lengthen the tie rod a little bit, and we should be good to go. If it steers, I'll lengthen and loosen accordingly. I know this is the only side I touch, so if it's not steering perfectly straight, then that's why. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of a in-depth view of what's going on. I'm gonna wait for this to dry, and then I'm gonna go ahead and paint it up like the other side, because you can see there's some rust building up and stuff. And I'm no longer in rust-free Florida. I'm in Illinois, so I really need to make sure we stay on top of our rust game. And you know, when the salts come, it's gonna come hard. I want to make sure we don't have any issues. So without further ado, I'm gonna keep working on this stuff, getting it back together, and just kind of wanted to show you that's what's going on. Just finished up on the ball joint reinstall, so went ahead and tightened up all my pieces up here. I haven't changed out the shock just yet, but for my ball joint solution, I went ahead and instead of using this thing that came with it, which is pretty solid design, but see where it split right there? It may let the bolt rotate. I guess it's a hex pattern on the inside there. You can't tell this is dirty. To keep it from rotating when you're trying to, you know, work it. Mine split, so then it was rotating. I couldn't tighten it or loosen it all the way. Got some grade 8 hardware, and it's pretty tough stuff. And it torqued down to the same settings. So this is now on here. I want to put a washer between everything and a lock washer to make sure nothing comes off, and I think we'll be pretty solid with that. So if it gets any worse, I'll go ahead and just grab a whole new upper control arm. They're not that expensive. I know there's a junkyard around here for they're pretty cheap. You can find them at. Hopefully that'll last and won't have any problems. Painted it, so keep any rust out after scraping it down to bare metal. So now we're gonna go ahead and knock out the shock real quick, and once the shock gets out of here and done, we'll put the wheel back on. We'll be done for today. Definitely got to give this thing a wash. She is filthy, but it's coming together pretty well now. Well, time to go on a little test drive and see how the shocks do. So this is probably the worst road that I'm aware of coming up right here. So see how it does, I guess. All right, the ultimate test. Good old train tracks right here. Well, still at 3,500, but it does feel a lot more grounded, that's for sure. So I don't think the old shocks were blown or anything, but it was time. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it's getting air every time it hits a bump now. Still not, you know, freaking as smooth as a daily cruiser, but worlds, I don't know about worlds better, but a lot better than it was before, that's for sure. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Looks like my alignment is just about on point with the adjustment there. Keeping the wheel pretty straight, and yeah, I did adjust the camber out just a little bit. Feels pretty solid. Well, that's gonna go ahead and end off this video. We took care of pretty much all the major suspension issues that I was concerned about for right now. I don't really know of any other ones that are bothering me, so I think it's good to go. Went ahead and painted the front wheels while I was at it, scraped them off real quick. There's a bunch of crap. I gotta get the rears eventually, but we got new wheels and tires coming, so when they come off, I'll get the rest of them. So that's gonna go ahead and do it for today's video. I'm a little dirty, sorry about that, but it is what it is. And kind of just knocked out some issues that were bugging me. The shocks were a big one because the ride has become worse and progressively worse as I've been doing more driving on them. Again, I don't think they were blown out or anything. They're just worn out and just old. There's no like fluid dripping or anything like that. They still had some rebound, like you could push on it and it wouldn't just free move. But it was time for new shocks, so it is what it is. Other than that, we got our little suspension issues in the front figured out. The ball joint wear issue is kind of concerning, but it seems to be all right. So that should be everything. I'll go ahead and see you guys in the next video. Take it easy. Hopefully the next video will be getting the Jeep up and running. The only reason it's taking this long is I'm waiting literally on a radiator. It's supposed to be here, and that would have been this video that you guys are seeing now. But hopefully it'll be next one when it shows up, and I didn't botch head gasket job. So like I was saying, without further ado, okay, take it easy guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed the truck content.